Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we are joined by New York State Dyslexic funded researcher, Russell Van Brocklen. How you
Thanks
doing
for
today,
having me
bro?
on. Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, it's my pleasure. I'm kind of interested in see how you got funded and how you were able to overcome this, dyslexia that was thrown at you.
Well, the interesting point of the story is when I decided I wanted to know how government worked. So it was the late 90s, and I wanted to know, not some theory, not some class, I wanted to know. So I signed up for the New York State Assembly internship program. And I got there and I said, here's my neuropsychological evaluation. I have a first grade reading and writing level. And they looked at me and said, this isn't going to work. So they took me out of the legislative office building, put me in the Capitol with the Majority Leaders Program and Counsel's office because they had 3 administrative assistants that could help me out. And it was a much better internship because that was the executive, not the legislature. And this was the heart of the assembly, the day-to-day operations. So then it came time for my academic portion. I had to do a major, remember college, those big research papers you had to do?
Yeah.
Well, I had to do one of those, but I couldn't write. So the standard accommodation back then was I would go and give an oral presentation. So it was a really long presentation, went on for hours with a Q&A. And at the end, they recommended 15 credits of A-. Now, the universities, I came from the political science department of the State University of New York at Buffalo. They're not required to take the recommendation. They normally do. Or they might adjust it a little bit. But they didn't like my accommodations. So instead of 15 credits of A-, I got 15 credits of F. Okay? Imagine what that does to your grade point average.
Probably lowers it quite substantially.
Yeah, it was a punch in the gut. And I said, I am done with this level of discrimination. I am done. So what I did is I said, I want to solve reading and writing for everybody, but I'm reading and writing at the first grade level. I want to solve it for dyslexics. So I asked my professors, where do I go in grad school where I am forced to learn to read and write? And they joked. They said, law school. And I said, okay. So I went and I signed up to audit 2 law school classes with the main reason I went to a school was because of Professor Warner. He was a dyslexic legal professor. And I go in. It's my second day of contracts. And they use this thing called the Socratic method. If people want to know about it, there was a famous movie called The Paper Chase in the 70s. They do is, if you don't know the answer, which quite frankly almost nobody does the second day of class, is they keep asking you questions to embarrass the heck out of you. All right. And then they ask more to kind of compel you to try to learn how to do this as quickly as possible. And then the professor just is one after the other, just slamming students. Well, he called on me. That didn't happen to me. This is where I learned later on that when dyslexics go to grad school, we own the place day one or soon thereafter, because here's what's going on with dyslexia. You see how the back part of the dyslexic brain has like nothing going on and yours is going crazy?
Yeah.
This is from a book called Overcoming Dyslexia, second edition from Yale. This is page 78, figure number 23. Do you see how the front part of the brain is about 2.5 times overactive?
Yeah.
Okay. That deals with 2 things, word analysis followed by articulation. So I got 2.5 times I got 2.5 times the horsepower than everybody else. This is when it finally organized, came through. I could see where he was going. He could see where I was going. He started asking me questions. I answered them. He's not putting me down. He's not denting me. So then he starts getting a little snarky. I get a little snarky back. He's not putting me down. So then I start yelling at him. I'm leaning forward. I'm literally yelling at him. He's leaning forward, yelling at me. 1 minute goes by. 5 minutes goes by. We can't beat each other. 10 minutes go by. 15 minutes go by. He finally raised his hand. He said, Russell, you couldn't be any more correct. In the interest of time, I have to move on to the next case. My classmates who graduated, became lawyers, been practicing for a couple of decades. They said they still can't do that. not to a professor, not in their area. So I solved reading within a month. I solved writing within a couple of years. Then I said, okay, now I went back to the New York State Senate and I said, I want you to fund my research. So they sent me over to the they sent me over to the New York State Education Department. They said, okay, you want us to fund your research. They're like, how do we get rid of this guy? That's what I was picking up. Where's this out of? I said, Buffalo. I said, okay, we want a New York State SUNY Distinguished Professor in Psychology, their top rank. I said, okay. I looked up 2 in all of Western New York. That's it. So just so happened, the professor who gave me my original evaluation was free, and she was a distinguished professor, and she gave me another one. It said I could take my reading and writing from first grade level to grad level and then back down again. Then I had to connect it to Professor James Collins. He wrote a book for strategies for struggling writers. And it was supposed to take me years to get it approved. I had it approved in less than 2 weeks. I ended up, he said, A+ excellent. I got 15,000 from a university-wide competition. And then we tested it out for years. And then the Senate finally funded it for multiple years. What happened is I wanted to see what we could do with the ideal. So we took the most motivated juniors and seniors at the Averill Park Central School District, who were highly intelligent, highly motivated, and we took their best teacher, Susan Ford. 1 class period a day for the school year. They increased their writing and their reading from middle school level to average of entering graduate school students. They all went on to college. They all graduated, grade point averages of 2.5 to 3.6. Cost New York State less than $900 a kid, compared to the best college at the time for dyslexics in the United States, Landmark College. We were 3x as successful for less than 1% of the cost. That's how I got started.
That's crazy. I mean, you saw that there was a need from it because of what you went through. But how was your program different than like everybody else's?
Okay. So do you have any kids?
No.
Okay. I want you to imagine, mostly people think it's boys, it's not, but let's just say you had a son who was 10 years old, okay, 11 years old, and they're reading and writing at the first grade level, years behind. And a school came to you and said, hi, we're the Gowell School. We've been successful at this for 99 years. You have our son come to board with us. We're $86,000 a year. That's just for room, board, and tuition, not all the other expenses. And we will absolutely guarantee if he belongs in a top college, we will get him ready and send them there. All right. And they've been doing this for 99 years. Let's say you won the lottery and you had the money. Would you spend it?
Yeah.
But now you're sending your son away to boarding school. You see how a lot of families don't want that.
Yeah.
So essentially what's happening is they're using an old method where you see it, touch it, hear it, because Dr. Orton passed away in 1948. This hasn't changed a lot since the 1950s. All right. I had this weird idea again. Here's the book, top one in my field. Here's the brains again. There's virtually nothing going on in the back part of my brain. Yours is going crazy. The front part of my brain is 2.5 times overactive. That's word analysis followed by articulation. So I had this weird idea. Let's focus on that. So that's how I got started. Now, when I did that, there was a bit of a problem. I presented this in New York City in 2006. And the teacher said, great, you've handled this for the elite. What about normal kids? Will that work for them? I said, no. So I said, well, you have to figure out how to work with this with normal students. What's the difference between the ultra-motivated elite students and normal students? Well, the elite kids they'll do anything I asked, and they're hyper-intelligent. Typical students are average intelligence or maybe above average a bit, and they're not that motivated. So they're not going to take all this stuff I'm throwing at them. So what I realized is I had to add a few things. Number one, I had to focus on the kid's speciality, their area of extreme interest and ability. All right. So I want you to think, let's just take you for an example. What's your specialty? What do you really love doing? What are you really good at?
Probably helping kids with like developing mindset and like achieving high goals.
Okay, helping them get the right mindset and to achieve high goals. All right. Now, I want you to imagine if you were way back. I know this is putting us back through hell, but going back and being like 13 again. All right. And you had to improve your reading and writing. If you just focused on that, on a book and an audio book that you really liked on that subject matter, do you see how you'd be really engaged?
Yeah.
Okay. But with dyslexics or ADD or ADHD, same thing when it comes to your treatment. That is you in the intervention period from when you're starting way below grade level to grade level. I call that the intervention period. If you don't do that in the intervention period, their motivation for the most motivated kid, you're down 50%. For most kids, you're down 75, 80%. You're literally shooting yourself in the foot by not staying in their speciality. So what we would do is we would find a book and an audio book in what you're interested in, and we would stay on that book until you're reading and writing in that book level. I would try to get something a couple of grade levels ahead of where you are, 1 or 2 grade levels, so you can grow into it. All right, that's step number 1. Step number 2 is I found this fascinating. When I went and I talked to a bunch of senior dyslexic professors, I found out that they were absolutely horrific if you tried to teach them from the general to the specific. So you remember in school, in college, they would generally start off very big picture, 50,000 feet, and then they'd move down into the details over time.
Yeah.
Dyslexics, that's like grabbing fog. We can't do it. It's too hard. All right. So what do? What we have to do is we have to do it the other way. We have to think from the specific to the general. So for example, you can't ask a dyslexic, what effect did Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech have on the American Civil Rights Movement in 1960 or the 1960s? We can't there's nothing to grab onto. But if we flip it and we ask a specific to a general question, what personally compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous I Have a Dream speech? We would go into his biography, we would find out, and then we would answer that question. And then from that question, that answer would give us another question, we'd answer that. And we'd keep going. That forces the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Let me give you an example. Are you ready for me to ask you a question to see if you're dyslexic?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're thinking about helping kids, help them set their goals, when you're thinking about that, do you ever have ideas flying around your head at light speed? Key question, but with little to no organization.
No, not really.
Okay. All right. There goes, you're not ADD, ADHD, or mildly dyslexic. That's, if you were, you would have answered yes to that question. That's the biggest problem. So what's happening is they're thinking so rapidly with little to no organization. What we have to do is to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we follow by word analysis, followed by articulation. Now, people ask, what do you mean by that? So let me give you an example. So what I'm about to do is I'm about to show you, I'm going to get you an epiphany on what dyslexia really is. And for your listeners who are have dyslexic kids, if they're writing what appears to be randomly placed misspelled words, I'm going to show you how to jump that up about 2 grade levels in writing and reading it at once. Okay. So do you know any dyslexic elementary school kids really well?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to give you my standard example. Her name is Sarah. She's 10 years old. Her favorite thing to do in the world is swimming. She's on the swim team. She took a special course so she can be an assistant swim instructor for the real little kids. She jumps in the pool every chance she can get. Okay. So Sarah's writing essentially randomly placed misspelled words. Here's how we fix that. And I'm going back to the science again, overcoming dyslexia, page 78, figure 23. We're going to use that overactive front part of the brain that's 2.5 times overactive. So what we do, it's word analysis followed by articulation. Let's do word analysis. You're going to write out the 10 things Sarah really likes and then 10 things she really doesn't like. So we're going to start off with swimming. Then you're going to type out, not in an iPad, not on an iPhone. She's not handwriting this. She's typing out on a real keyboard on a laptop. So you're going to type out hero +, what are we talking about? And she's going to copy it. That's okay. Professor James Collins, Strategies for Struggling Writers, Default Writing Strategy of Copying. So then we got hero +, what are we talking about? We're going to swap out hero for Sarah. Sarah +, what are we talking about? We're going to swap out what are we talking about for the first thing on her list that she really likes, which is swimming. Sarah + swimming. See how we got there?
Yeah.
But now we need to swap out the + for a word that makes it a proper 3-word sentence. So I'm going to ask you the most simplest questions you're going to ever get asked in your life. And if you do it correctly, this works. If you don't do it correctly, if you don't answer them exactly, this isn't going to work. Do you think I'll be able to fool you?
Probably.
Ready for an epiphany? Ready for an epiphany to find out what dyslexia really is?
Yeah.
So we got Sarah + swimming. So we got to replace that + with a word. Here's my question. Remember, I'm about to try to fool you. Here's my question. We got to replace the +. Does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
Like.
Okay, very good. Now put that into the sentence, and what's the 3-word sentence?
Sarah likes swimming.
You did it the right time the first time, and then you screwed it up the second time. Do I have you completely confused right now?
Because you would need an S on the end to make it sound good.
There
Like swimming.
you go.
But I went on what you said because you wanted like. You told me like, dislike. So
yeah, you said like the first time, but then you did. You spotted it. Most professionals don't spot it. When you put it into the sentence, you automatically added the S to make it sound correct.
Yeah.
Sarah's dyslexic. She doesn't know how to do that.
Yeah. That's what I mean. That's why I said it like instead of added the likes.
But then when you made the sentence, you see how you automatically added the S?
Yeah.
Because you've been trained to do that. Okay. Sarah doesn't know how to add the S. So how does the Gowl School do it? How do all of these schools for millionaires do this? Again, using an approach that hasn't changed a heck of a lot since the 1950s. All right. They use they have an Orton Gillingham multi-structured, multi-sensory approach. What does that mean? They see it, touch it, hear it, using all the senses, and it's complicated as all heck. It's 4-to-1, 5-to-1 student to teacher ratio, and it takes 4 to 5 years after 4th grade. Sound like fun?
Not really.
Okay. And again, the Windward School, 98% success, only $75,000 a year for 4 to 5 years. Okay. You got that money in your back pocket somewhere, right?
Yeah. Not really, but
yeah, it's house money. So here's how we get parents to do this at home. What we do is we ask Sarah to read what she wrote out loud. Sarah like swimming. Then I ask Sarah, does that sound generally correct? She says, no, Sarah likes swimming. I'm sorry, I say fix it. And then she writes Sarah likes swimming. We do that with 10 likes and 10 dislikes until they're all spelled correctly. Make sense?
Yeah.
Do you see how that is a very simple form of word analysis?
Yeah, because you're actually learning as you're doing, and you're putting in the repetition by doing the 10. So you're actually getting the repetition so you get it down.
Right. But again, this is the front part of the brain. Remember I said word analysis followed by articulation. That part is word analysis. See the connection?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, then we're going to go, Sarah likes swimming because, then we get into reasons. The reasons are a form of articulation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're using the front part of the brain with 2.5 times the neural activity instead of the back part of the brain with next to nothing going on. That's the big connection that I made. Okay, now, Sarah likes swimming. Why? Give me a simple reason why a 10-year-old girl would like swimming.
That's fun.
It's fun. You know what? Everybody says that. Sarah likes swimming because it's fun. Now what you got is a whole bunch of misspelled words. And people are like, how do we fix this? It's simple. You tell Sarah to type it out, okay, and then drop the period. But once the period's down, if she has a misspelled word or a major, and I mean major grammatical error, she has to retype the whole thing. So she drops the period. Probably spelled because wrong. Probably spelled fun wrong. And you point it out. Now she has to retype the whole thing. She starts to hyper-concentrate. Somewhere between 3 and 13 times, she'll get it right, typically. As you get to 10 to 13, remember, she's typing the same thing over and over again, and she's making the same mistake. And she's really hyper-concentrating to the point by 10 to 13 times, you might see sweat coming down her forehead. It's incredibly intense. That's where the magic happens. You make sure you have everything spelled correctly for 10 likes and 10 dislikes before you move on. If she's doing number 18 and she misspells the word, restart it. Make sure everything is perfectly correct. Then it's reason 1 and reason 2, connected by the glue word and. Then reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3. Okay? If you're talking about a 10-year-old, this is going to take between 2 and 6 weeks. If you're talking about a 3rd grader, an 8-year-old, this could take the entire semester. But at the end, parents are doing this normally in 10 to 15-minute sessions at night, most nights of the week. And what happens? At the end, the kid is now writing at the end of 2nd, beginning 3rd grade level. And here's another big secret. If they can write it, they can read it. So again, if they can write it, they can read it. You're now looking at somebody who's increased their reading and writing skills a couple of grade levels. And this is something you can do at home with that amount of instruction.
Huh.
It's
So
that simple.
Yeah. Which one was harder to get them to learn how to read or to write?
Oh, I don't bother teaching reading. I teach writing. If they can write it, they can read it. Now, does that make any sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Then parents have asked me, how successful is this in reality? Well, I'm writing a book. The book is called Literacy and Reading Dyslexia Turnaround. And it's about Kimberly and her son, Reed. I have full permission to tell the story. I met Kimberly last December 2024, December 27th. She just spent $700 getting her kids tested by the state of Ohio. She's homeschooling them. Her son, Reed, was halfway through 5th grade and reading and writing at the beginning 3rd grade level. The test he took, if he was in public school for the rest of the school year, he was supposed to increase by 1.86 points. That didn't happen. Kimberly had him increase by 20 points. 11x the improvement. Not double, not triple, 11 times. So at the end of the school year, he was actually graded a little bit above grade level. What I keep telling people is that during the intervention period, you have to be in the kid's specialty, which for Reed was Wolverine from X-Men. But then his friends came to him over the summer and they said, Reed, we want you in school with us for social reasons. If he tried that in January, he would have been in special ed. Nobody would really know how to help him. He would have been away from his friends and a very frustrated kid. But now he's in 6th grade. He's doing extraordinarily well in mainstream classes. And now we're working on bringing his paragraph writing ability up to high school seniors. Yes, that's the next jump. We take them from elementary school to high school seniors for our next step. All right, and he's doing just fine. His mom accomplished what every parent dreams about. And she works with him about 3 30-minute sections a week. And I worked with her about half an hour a week. And that's it. That's all it took.
That's awesome. How long does it usually take for you to train like parents and teachers to start working with kids?
Well, you have to understand that teachers, this is their profession.
So they're a little bit harder.
Oh, no, they have a 4-year undergrad degree in the subject, a 2-year master's degree, and normally, 5, 10, 15 years of experience, where every year they get 20, 30 new kids who can't figure out where they need a point where they need to get to at the end of the year. For some reason, they figure it out and they get the vast majority of them through it. I mean, what they do is amazing. So with teachers, I can go in and teach how to take the kid who can't write C-spot run and then bring their reading and writing skills to essentially grade level by the end of elementary school. That training takes teachers about 3 hours, okay, to show them how to write body paragraphs that are at the senior year of high school takes about another 3 hours. So you're talking about a day. For parents, typically what we do is we have everything online so they can go through it at their own pace. And we have a weekly webinar where they can come and say, this isn't quite working because, and they ask generally the same question. We say, yeah, in that case, here's the change you make to make it work. All right. They take a bit longer, but here's the thing with parents. You're not spending $150 an hour for a private Wharton certified tutor. You can do this at home. It may take you a little longer, but you're not going to be spending house money or car money to do it. That's the key thing, because most families can't afford those types of tutors.
Yeah. So how many people would you say are affected by dyslexia around in the United States?
When you're talking about, unfortunately, my field is horrible at answering that question. Dyslexia is supposed to represent the most severe forms of reading and writing concerns. So really, you're probably talking about 5, maybe 10%. When you add ADD and ADHD, which are effectively the same thing, it's just a much milder case. You could be talking a total of 15, some people say as high as 20%, but I think that's pushing it.
Huh. That's kind of alarming statistics that you would think about if you think about it.
Oh, yeah. And you would want to know what we spend on these kids. I mean, we're spending almost double per educating a dyslexic kid in New York State, and they're doing horrible. I mean, you're talking passing like the state reading and writing test, various years, you could be talking gen eds. I mean, everybody passing at 40, 50%, and dyslexics maybe around 10. I mean, we're spending, it's just horrible. So what I wanted to do is when I looked at that, when you're looking at that Wharton-Gillingham approach I've been talking about, the older you are, the longer it takes, because you got to relearn everything. Let's say you're a 6th grader and you're just starting to use that approach. You have to learn K through 5 plus everything else you're supposed to be learning now anyway. That's why it takes 4 to 5 years. With my approach, the older you are, the quicker you pick it up. The exact opposite. So I remember I was working with a kid who was in college, and he said, kid had an immense, genius level, top 2% of the country IQ, but his reading and writing was like at the 3rd grade level. He said, I can't do this. I said, well, when I started out, my reading and writing was 2 grade levels below yours. He's like, where did you solve this? I said, I went to law school. Huh? So I took him through a combination of what I'm currently doing in my original program. What we can do now is I can use ChatGPT Deep Research Agent. The day they came out with a Pro's $200 a month subscription last December, I bought it. All right. And I can get 6, 8 custom questions written like their GRE arguments, but customized to his speciality. And we can pick the grade level. We worked for about 6 months. He went back. He's getting, right now he's a 3.0 student. And he's like, I can't believe I changed this. I said, well, we're working in your speciality. I sent him to a community college for his general ed credits. Just get past him. And he came back in his major, and he's doing really well.
I think that's almost everybody, because I remember that first go around I went to college where you all started them general education classes. Like, man, I don't really care about these classes. Some of them are horrible that you have to learn. It's like, this has nothing to do with what I want to do. Yeah.
So here's what our educational, and this is why it's so against dyslexics. Not because the schools are trying to be mean. It's just they focus on the 80+% of the students who are not dyslexic or ADD or ADHD. All right. And that works generally well for most of you. So what they try to do is make you well-rounded before you can specialize. All right, like remember when you're in English class and you had to read, what was it, 5, 10 books a year in high school?
Yeah.
Okay. This is my most popular book when I do things privately. It's Walt Disney, The Triumph of the American Imagination. All 1,000 pages of it. All right, 1,000 pages. And I will give this to a 10-year-old who's reading at the second grade level. Done it dozens of times. Does that make any sense to you?
A little bit, because I had a teacher too, like in 8th grade. Um, like we had to complete all these reading assignments, read all these books. And she took a different approach with some of us that we could choose some of our books. So she let me choose some of my books, and then she'd make me a list of, hey, I want you to read like Gone with the Wind and some of these like really like elite high level books. But then she also let me read books like a Stephen King book that was interesting, or a sports autobiography, something to keep me interested. So I'd read that real quick, then go read one of hers, So I mean, and that after finishing like hers, she'd bump me up to advanced English in high school because of that, because the amount I was able to read,
Right. So here's what I'm doing with the dyslexics. Why are the kids so interested in Walt Disney? Because they love going to Disney World or Disneyland. Have you been to either one of them?
Yes.
Okay. Was it Disney World or Disneyland?
Which one's in Anaheim, California?
Disneyland.
Yep, that's what I've been to.
You walk in and you go into Main Street, USA, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's Marceline, Missouri. That's where Walt was between age 5 and 10. So he spent the rest of his life trying to reclaim that experience. So when you were there, did you feel the Disney magic?
It was kind of cool place.
But you did, yeah. Did you see the young kids experiencing the Disney magic?
Yeah.
Okay. Walt passed away in 1965. It's a completely different place now, but still, you still have remnants of it. Now, the kids feel that, and I said, that's 2 universal themes that allow that. This is the first one. It's real easy to find. The second one is by far the most important one, and you got to find it. They're like, what is it? I said, no, you got to read to find it. So I would start them on the chapter, the section of Marceline, Missouri. It's 3,600 words at the 9th to 10th grade level. These kids are reading typically at the second grade level. So what I do is I have them listen to their audiobook while they're following along with their finger in the real book, trying to answer one of 3 questions. What does Walt like? What does he dislike? What does he want to do, depending on what level I'm working on? That takes the chaos in the front part of their head. Remember when I asked you about ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They would say yes to that. They say yes. And so that will take that chaos and drop it by about 70 to 80%. Then when I say, well, you come to a word you don't know, which the first time through was about every word, I would say you're going to type out that word. Then you're going to go to Merriam-Webster's online dictionary. You cannot copy and paste. You cannot copy and paste. Pick your definition, type it out. And I hear parents now, my kid won't do that. I said, you're right. If it's outside their speciality, but this is directly in their speciality. So they're willing to move heaven and earth. This is how I get them to act like those super motivated kids in my original program. So then they'll type out that word and the definition. How many times do you have to type out a word and a definition until you know it permanently?
Probably about 10 times.
Yeah. 5, 10, 15, 20, some number. And I have them go through the entire section, the whole 3,600 words. Then they do it again and again until they can read that entire thing with no assistance. Okay? Give you an example how long this took. 2 years later, at age 12, I asked the mom, what is the second universal theme? Mom has a master's degree. She can't find it. I've never had a parent find it. And then as 12-year-old girls will say to their mothers in the situation, Mom, it's right there. And the mom could not believe she missed it. She went through it so many times. And I said, well, man, your 12-year-old daughter, your 12-year-old dyslexic daughter can now comprehend in this instance better than you can. And you have a master's degree. Have I done my job? And the parents said yes. Now the daughter is years ahead of everybody else in her grade. Years. All right. And they're just, her classmates are scratching their head. How was this possible? And it was a heck of a lot of work to get through that. Why? Because, well, this used to be affordable. But the parents would say, as I've been doing this, working on that book for a couple of decades, is they would say, well, if you can learn to read, we'll take you to a trip to Disneyland or Disney World. So that used to be affordable. All right. So that's what the motivation was. And that book is written for 17-year-olds. That's now, and that transfers over to the rest of it. That's how you solve reading. It's literally that simple. You do that over time, over a couple of weeks, you develop a vocabulary, advanced vocabulary of a dozen or two dozen words. You do it over 3 to more likely 6 months, you have a vocabulary of hundreds of evolved words. And this is so powerful that when the kid, 3, 4, 5 years later gets ready for their PSAT, their SAT, or their ACT, the verbal sections are essentially a vocabulary test. They remember 70 to 80% of those definitions. They don't have to study a list of hundreds of evolved words because they already know them. Drives their classmates crazy.
Yeah, I bet it does, but I don't think the classmates understand how much work they put to get there.
They have no idea. And then the next thing I do is there's a book called The Craft of Research that I based the writing on. The Craft of Research came out in 1995 by the University of Chicago because their PhD students didn't know how to write dissertations. I know it's that absurd. Now, in its 5th or 6th edition, they advanced it to super advanced high school students, which means almost no high school students. So what it says is we're going to first show you how to put things in on context, get everybody on the same page. We're going to put in a problem statement, and then we're going to show you how to come up with something completely original. Problem is, it's really hard to understand because it's made for PhD students. So I combined it with this. All right, so I dropped context to 4th to 5th graders. That's what I did with Reed. That was his 11 times faster learning than what his school expected him to do. Problem is between 6th grade and high school juniors. That's where I show them how to write at literally the senior year of high school. Solution is so advanced. Our goal is to have these kids writing something original at the graduate level. So I want you to imagine 20 students following this method on Shakespeare's. What they're writing is, let's say it's Romeo and Juliet. All 20 would be completely original. Like nothing ever written on that before. All 20. Teachers are shocked when students can do that. Why is this so important? Why am I spending so much time on this? I think you've noticed with the artificial intelligence, it's very hard for a lot of kids to get a job now out of college. So what is happening is they expect these kids to become absolutely fluent in artificial intelligence. I'm just going to use ChatGPT as an example because that's the most prolific one. And they expect them to become senior very quickly. In other words, very good at what they do within 6 months to 2 years max, usually between 6 and 12 months if they're lucky. Thing about artificial intelligence is if you know how to use the craft of research. I have an example of this. I had a student call me last year. He hates ChatGPT, hates artificial intelligence. But his boss loved it. He said, I am not going to allow you to spend hours writing up a draft when ChatGPT can do it with you in 10 minutes. And he said, let's see if we can have any of our new college kids contribute anything to the company. So he contacts me kind of in a panic. I said, you've been trained in the craft of research. You practice it for 4 years. Go talk to the AI, type with it. I don't care how you do it. Figure out context. He comes back a couple of days later. "Oh, I did it." I said, "Okay, good. Now go do problem. I've trained you how to do this. You practiced this for 4 years." He comes back a few days later. "I hate this." I was like, "Welcome to the adult world." Then I go and I give him a verbal kick in the butt to go back and do the solution. He produces a 5-paragraph essay, which is what I trained him how to do. Boss is flipping through it. Can't use this, can't use this, comes to his. "Oh, we can use this. That's a good idea. A very minor solution, but something that had some value." Okay. Within a week, he's training his peers on how to do artificial intelligence, knowing nothing about it before, because he knew the craft of research. Guess who's probably kept his job? Guess who probably lost it? You can pretty much figure that one out. Yeah. I hate to say it, but that's where it's coming down to. I use it like crazy every day, and it literally has 5x my productivity. Literally.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people that are switching to using AI and like especially Chat GPT to like write things out and like to better get their message out, to craft their message.
Yeah, it's a lot more powerful than that. I keep advancing the field of dyslexia. So I'll have one focusing on, I'm trying to improve this part of the process. And it's doing the grunt work, and it'll take 10 to 15 minutes because I use 5 Pro. It takes 10 to 15 minutes for it to do anything. Then I'll have another one doing another thing I'm trying to solve. And then I'll be answering emails, correspondence, and things like that while I'm waiting for them to think. And then I go back and I jump into it. I get a lot of value out of Pro. And what I try to tell my students is you have to become so good and so valuable that it's worth the company justifying spending $200 a month on you. And if you can't, well, we're going to have to make sure you can, because those are the ones that get the jobs.
Yeah.
Like literally, I had a kid there's a company that I said, "You're not going to apply to 500 companies like everybody else and just spray and pray your resumes. Who do you want to work for?" And she said, "This company." I said, "Okay. What problems are they having that you can fix?" "All right, go and use the Pro version. Walk through, find out what it is, do the research, run deep research projects on everything you want to do, and then per section, run another deep research agent report." I showed them how to create 20, 30,000 word reports within a half an hour with it. So then she goes in for the interview and she says, "Yeah, I understand you're having this problem. Here's a solution for it." Guess who got the job?
I'd imagine she did.
That's how important it is nowadays. And this has all just changed in the past 6 months.
Yeah. And it's growing. Like I've seen everybody using it now.
Yeah, OpenAI just came out, I think, the last couple of days, where they can now have all these agents built over the place. Maybe they just made it a lot easier in their app, whatever they call it. I mean, Walmart is using these things to make different parts so much more productive, and they need a lot less people. Now we're in a interesting situation where we have the baby boomers, a massive generation retiring. And we have the Gen Z. I mean, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm the puny generation. You're a millennial. There's a million of you guys. You guys are actually bigger than the baby boomers. But Gen Z's puny, the smallest generation we've had since post-World War II. And so they're even finding hard to get a job, even with all these baby boomers retiring. It's kind of like AI is replacing the job market as the workforces shrink. So I'm trying to tell this generation, this is what you need to do to become productive. Or what a lot of smart ones are doing is they're becoming plumbers or electricians. They're joining the union. So I'll tell you, it's going to be a real long time before some robot comes around who can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're doing, the students I've worked with, I said, "Okay, here's what you're going to do. You're not going to join the union right away. You're going to go to a community college. Give you an example for electricians, and you're going to go and get your associate's degree in plumbing." Okay. And they go and they take all those general education classes that you love so much. And they're howling at it. Then they finish up, and then they said, My friend, at their graduation day, my friend started this instead of going to this stupid community college. Now he's making so much more. I said, yeah, just wait till your first week. You will be thanking me. So he starts off first week. It's the second day. They say, well, now that you guys put in a back-breaking 8 hours a day or whatever it was, now you got to go to class for 3.5 hours, twice a week for 5 years. Because they have to get an equivalent to an associate's degree.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not doing that. I'm going home. His buddies there said, no, you have to go to class. He said, no, I did the associate's degree first. So now he gets to go home, pop open a beer and relax. That's what he liked to do because he said, I am beat. He said, I don't know how I would get. That's why the attrition rate was so high for those union programs. And then he finally became a journeyman. He said, yeah, you did the right thing. And he said, I am making so much more now than my buddies who went to college. And they're right now scared of losing their jobs. Some have lost their jobs to AI.
Yeah, and a lot of the trades now the numbers are going down too. So they're looking for help.
Oh, they are desperately looking for help. All these data centers they want to build, electricians. All right. That's why for the first time, the Democrat and Republican parties are fighting like crazy for the union vote because it's growing so rapidly.
Yeah. How can people get a hold of you?
The easiest thing to do is just to go to dyslexiaclasses.com. That's plural, dyslexia classes with an S, dyslexiaclasses.com. And there's a button right there in the homepage. It says download free guide. Just click on that, answer a couple of questions. You'll get a document. The 3 reasons your child is having trouble in school due to dyslexia and how to get past it. And then you can set up a free 30-minute appointment with me. I'll talk to you and your child, figure out what their speciality is, and get you their audio book and their real book. All right? Parents find that, they said, that's the hardest part. We can't figure that part out. I said, fine, let me do it. And it's always tough to get your child on the Zoom call with me. But you know what? Just get them on. And then I ask them that question, a few other ones, and they're like, how did you know about me? And I said, well, you know what? I went through what you went through. A lot of them thinks I have invisible cameras spying on them. Like, how do you know? It's like, because I went through what you went through. You think you're the only one? And then they're like, this is how I asked, is this how you want to overcome your reading and writing issues? They say yes. And then we work with parents on a yearly basis. Something that's affordable. All right. And then we work to get your kids at grade level. That's it.
Awesome. Is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to talk about?
No, you asked really good questions.
Okay, I appreciate it. Okay, final question. What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
The strongest thing is I'm just going to put it into dyslexia. Find out what the kid's really interested in, and during the intervention period, just focus on that. You will take them from being shattered as a person and bringing them back to being a typical kid again. It's crushing when you're so far behind all the time. And the teacher's insistence on, let's make sure we get through the 5 or 10 books we have to get through this year. It's just crushing for dyslexics. So focus on that. Go through the model that I gave you, and your kid will be fine. That's the main thing that I want to get across.
Great advice. Russell, thank you so much for coming on here, sharing your insight.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, it was my pleasure, man. I loved your insight on this topic. I mean, I think it needs to be talked about a little bit more.
That's why I've done over 80 podcasts. I got another 65 scheduled. I'm trying to spread the word.
Man, well, you have fun with all that. Well, guys, that's going to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.